MCOMnet, second Monday at 7 p.m., W5FC. W5FC.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Does anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is KF5PDS. My name is Billy, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list, and remember to tell others about this popular net. You can now check into the net electronically by going to the club website, w5fc.org. Look for tonight's announcement and click on the hot link to check in. We will acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry, if you want to check in via voice, we'll continue to do that too over air and Echolink. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, recent astronomical discoveries, discussion topic of the evening, what's up, space exploration and space history, constellation of the week, space launches of the week, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and our 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. We currently have the following people checked in via w5fc.org. KE5ICX, Tom, Corpus Christi, All-Star Link. K5MCD, Cody in Dallas, over-air radio. NT5TM, Tony, Bird City, over-air radio. W5BLT, Bill, Garland, over-air radio. AG5PM, Rich, in Rockwall, over-air radio. AG9SG, Antonio in Dallas, over-air radio. WB50ZL, Brenda, Dallas, on Echolink. N5BB, Bill in Irving, over-air radio. N5LIG, Dale in Little Elm, over-air radio. And NV5F, Virginia, Funky Town, over-air radio. And KJ5JUQ, Hugh in Frisco, over-air radio. Welcome to Skynet. All right, now let's start with voice check-ins, starting with short time check-ins. So if you're low power short time, please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from this evening. Okay, I'm not hearing any low power short time, so let's go ahead with general check-ins. So please come now with your name, call sign, where you're transmitting from.
This is November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Hawaii, MST. This is Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James and Carrollton. Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu Bravo Lima, Bill, Farmers Branch. This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform, Sierra, Gus, low power, Southwest Medical Center.
All right, let's go ahead and acknowledge those. So we've got N5 Oscar Foxtrot, Clay in Mesquite, KG5 Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton, KF5ZBL, Bill in Farmers Branch, and W5GUS, Gus, low power, normally it's from far northeast Dallas. All right, do we have any other general check-ins? If so, please come now with your name, call sign, where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Juliet 5, Juliet Alpha Kilo, Nick in McKinney. This is Whiskey Bravo 4, Mike Foxtrot India, WB4MFI. Ted, Dallas, low power.
All right, let's acknowledge those. The first one I had a little trouble with, Kilo Golf 5 Uniform Foxtrot, and I didn't pick up the last letter or the name or the QTH. I'll get back to that in just a second. We've got Kilo Juliet 5, Juliet Alpha Kilo, Nick and McKinney, and WB4 MFI, Ted Dallas Low Power. All right, KG5 Uniform Foxtrot, if you'll come again with your call sign and your name and where you're transmitting from so I can get the rest of that. Thank you. I'm sorry, that is really not coming through. It's very scratchy. I can't pick up anything. Is anybody else picking up his transmission a little better? Can send me the information in the chat or relay over air. If so, please come now.
This is N5BB. I think that's Kilo Golf 5 Uniform Foxtrot Radio. I think, but I'm not sure. N5BB.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Yeah, Kilo Golf 5 Uniform Foxtrot Romeo. If that is your call sign, if you could increase power, improve your position, and try again, we'll give it one more shot before we move on. If not, you can adjust things and come back and do a recheck, and we'll get you. All right, in the meantime, let's go ahead with Echolink check-in. So if you're on Echolink and you have not checked in yet, please go ahead and do so. I will give you extra time to check in. So Echolink check-ins at this time. Okay, looking at the list, I see that everybody over there has checked in. So welcome to Skynet. All right, let's get started with general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If so, please come now with your call sign.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
And T5TM, Tony, good evening. What announcements do you have for us this evening?
Good evening, Billy. I'd like to encourage all our listeners to please take note of the links in the Public Service May 2025 post on w5fc.org. Both the MS-150 and the North Texas Native Plants and Prairies Day events would appreciate more volunteers, and both events are this coming weekend. You could do one on Saturday and one on Sunday if you like. Today's Afterglow movie discussion will focus on the Colossus of New York from 1958. I don't know. Why did it have so many strange staticky popping noises? Why did the robot have such big glowing eyes? Why do people keep remaking Frankenstein? I don't know. But at least this remake was short, and we can talk about it tonight at 10:30 or 10:35 or so, right here on this repeater. Now, speaking of this repeater, there will be a repeater work session beginning at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, so please bear with any service interruptions. We're likely to have one for at least several hours. We're all going to be up there trying to make the repeater more sensitive again. Hopefully, we're still retaining our previous victory over those crackling, popping noises. And finally, GeekNet will be this Monday at 7 p.m. local time. What butterflies have you seen lately? I can't guarantee that's what we'll talk about it, but we ought to. There's a lot of awesome butterflies out there. It's spring. Anyway, I hope to hear you on all of our nets, NT 5TM.
Great, thank you, Tony. And I like your robot impression. It reminds me of Uniblab on the Jetsons. All right, is there anyone else with any other announcements? If so, please come now with your call sign. Okay, not hearing any, so I'll go ahead with some announcements. The AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 3 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time, you can check into the National AMSAT Net, learn all about amateur satellites and how you can use them in amateur radio. The National AMSAT Net will bring the most up-to-date information on amateur satellites currently in use or new ones coming online. You will need Echolink installed and you registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. 2 local nets are available in Dallas. Both of these nets encourage active check-ins. You can ask questions of the net control as well as others checked in. The AMSAT Net East, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.880 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9. Tuesdays, Tom N5HYP is the net control. All are welcome to check in. The first Tuesday of the month is the DARC Club Night, so no AMSAT East on that night. Dallas AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.140 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. The DARC hosts a number of nets on Monday evenings at 7 p.m. Check the w5fc.org website. This coming Monday, as Tony mentioned, will be GeekNet. Geek Beyond Ham Radio. This Monday, Geek Out Beyond Ham Radio, we expand topics to include computers, science, space, news of the weird, and much more. No topic is off limits just long as it's geeky. Tony NT5TM is net control. Saturdays are the Night of Nets, where we keep the airwaves buzzing until midnight. Here's the lineup. TechNet from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., Q&A on all things ham radio related. There's also a swap meet, Rookie's Corner, news and information, and ham radio events and contests, alternating net control each week. And Skynet from 9 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., astronomy, space, and space exploration are the topics. And as Tony mentioned, Afterglow Movie Net from 10:30 to midnight. Will it be a hit or the dreaded miss? Thumbs up or thumbs down? You make the call. We watch an assigned science fiction movie and then review it for about 90 minutes. The first and third Sundays are the Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air. What's going on in your ham world? Tell us. Also learn about the club that maintains this popular repeater, the Dallas Amateur Radio Club. Club news and information, events, activities, including club meetings, lecture and lab, public service events, contests, and just general discussion. Everyone can check into this net. And daily is the ARRL Net National Traffic System Training Net every night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Learn how message traffic is handled on this formal training net. Newbies are welcome to check in as this is a training net. The NTS also conducts an evening net on the Irving Whiskey Alpha 5 Charlie Kilo Foxtrot repeater, 146.72 megahertz at 9:30 p.m. All are welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. And as promised, more information on tonight's Afterglow. So at this time, I'm going to turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX, if you will give us tonight's Afterglow info from KF5 PDS.
Well, thank you, Billy. Yes, as Tony hilariously brought up, probably better than what I'm going to do, the Colossus of New York this week. Jeremy Spencer was a brilliant young son of a New York City of scientists and humanitarians. He also was a cyborg, half man, half DeSoto, and his automotive half was on full display. A New York City cop placed another parking ticket on Spencer's dashboard. He sighed and realized just standing around the city was simply another excuse to get a parking ticket. He thought how he might tell the judge he was either standing as a cyborg, but could also be standing as a DeSoto, with engine running no less. But before he could surmise a defense strategy, another cop walked by and stuck another parking ticket on the hapless cyborg. Spencer was incensed, and before he knew it, he had blown his windshield wiper fluid, cranked his engine, and moved forward in a major tin hissy fit. Join us for this most unusual, the Colossus of New York, tonight at 10:30 p.m. Back to you, Billy, KE5 ICX.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom. You can keep up with all DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. So let's check the check-in sheet here. And I see one new check-in, Alpha Alpha 5 Alpha Hotel, Robert and Richardson over Air Radio. Welcome, Robert. Now I'll take additional voice check-ins, so if you're on air and have not checked into this evening's net yet, please come now with your name, call sign, and where you're transmitting from. Okay, not hearing any, so we'll move on to Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope. Tonight, giving us this information is Virginia, NV5F. The net is yours from KF5 PDS.
Okay, thanks very much. And again, for Chaz is me, Virginia, NV5F. And this is the Texas Astronomical Society info, slide master, slide number 1. Last night on April 25th, 2025 was the last CAF meeting, and the meeting was held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and was also held on Zoom. The featured speaker was Dr. Lindsay King of the University of Texas Dallas. Her topic was cosmic collisions, galaxy, and black holes. Saturday night public observing sessions continued. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night, so there would be the opportunity for live reports from the CAF public observing sessions. Currently, on the fourth Saturday of the month, there is no scheduled stargazing. Check the CAF website, www.texasastro.org, for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. And that's it. Thanks a lot. Back to net in V5F.
Awesome. Thank you, Virginia. All right, next up is National Space Society events and activities. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Bill, N5BB. The net is yours from KF5 PDS.
Well, thank you, Billy. This is N5BB. I am the Vice President and the Membership Director of the National Space Society North Texas Chapter. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. The big event each year for the National Space Society is the International Space Development Conference, ISDC. The next ISDC will be held in Orlando, Florida, June 19th to 22nd of this year. I will be there, as well as several other people from the local National Space Society chapter. This is in 5BB. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society meets every month at 3:30 p.m. on the second Sunday afternoon of each month. The meeting location is Spring Creek Barbecue on the southwest corner of Highway 183 and Beltline Road in Irving. Our April the 13th meeting topic, this is in the past now, was the Europa Clipper mission by Dr. Tracy Becker of Southwest Research Institute in San Antonio. The next chapter meeting will be on Sunday afternoon, May the 11th. A presentation topic for this meeting is not yet known. Our meetings are also available virtually using WebEx. In other words, it's streamed live. Contact Bill in 5BB if you'd like to attend. Tonight, members of the National Space Society North Texas chapter participated in the Night Sky Celebration event at the Elm Fork Nature Center in Carrollton. If this did not conflict with TechNet and Skynet, I would have attended that event. There also isn't very much room. It's a small building, so we already had plenty of people, so I decided not to go. On the last Friday evening of each month, at 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous. The location is Cheddar's Restaurant, which is 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. Anyone is welcome to attend and discuss human activities in space with us. No membership in any group is required. 7 people attended the April Space Rendezvous event, which was last evening. The next Space Rendezvous will be held on Friday, May the 30th. It's always the last Friday evening of each month, unless it's a major holiday like Christmas or New Year. Our local National Space Society chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Type National Space Society of North Texas into the search box. Now, unrelated to the National Space Society, I have another event that people might be interested in that's coming up this coming week. Skeptical Inquirer magazine is sponsoring an online live stream. This is a webinar titled Searching for Alien Earths on Thursday, May the 1st. That's this coming Thursday evening at 6 p.m. Central Daylight Time. This is with author and astrophysicist Lisa Kaltenegger. The questions of what makes a planet habitable and how to detect signs of life are lively and long-running ones. Kaltenegger will highlight some of the latest results and discuss the opportunities and challenges of identifying and characterizing such habitable worlds. Lisa Kaltenegger is an astrophysicist, public speaker, and author. She is the founding director of the Carl Sagan Institute to Search for Life in the Cosmos at Cornell University, a professor in astronomy, and author of Alien Earths, the new science of planet hunting in the cosmos. She is a pioneer and world-leading expert in modeling habitable worlds and their light fingerprints, and has spent the past decade finding new ways to spot life in the cosmos, working with NASA and the European Space Agency from Austria to the Netherlands. Harvard, Germany, and now Cornell. This live online event is free, but advanced registration is required. There's a big, long URL, which I can't read on the air. It's just impossible. If any of you have access to the streaming version of this, you may be able to see it. If not, you can send me an email. I'll give you my address in a moment, and I'll be glad to send you an email with this big, long link in it. You may be able to find it on a web search. If you look for Skeptical Inquirer, Searching for Alien Earths. That's Skeptical Inquirer, Searching for Alien Earths. I bet you can find it on a web search, but I didn't try it. If you have any questions about the National Space Society or the Searching for Alien Earth live stream on Thursday, May the 1st at 6 p.m. Central Time, please contact Bill, November 5 Bravo Bravo, at my QRZ listed email address or at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE at BYROM.net. At Astra, that means to the stars. This is N5BB, back to net control.
Great, thank you very much, Bill. And yes, this is KFI PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is recent astronomical discoveries. So at this time, I'm going to turn the net over to Brenda, WB5OZL. The net is yours from KFI PDS.
Thank you, Billy. This is WB5OZL. This article is entitled Innovative Approaches Advance Search for Ice on the Moon. Scientists and space explorers have been on the hunt to determine where and how much ice is present on the moon. Water ice would be an important resource at a future lunar base, as it could be used to support humans or be broken down to oxygen and hydrogen, key components of rocket fuel. University of Hawaii at Manoa, researchers are using two innovative approaches to advance the search for ice on moon. Water ice was previously detected in the permanently shaded regions of the moon's north and south poles by Shaoli, assistant researcher at the Hawaii Institute of Geophysics and Planetology in the UH Manoa School of Ocean and Earth Science and Technology. A new study led by Jordan Ando, planetary sciences graduate student in Lee's laboratory, examined images from a specialized camera, the Shadow Cam, that was on board the Korea Aerospace Research Institute Korea Lunar Pathfinder Orbiter. Craters in the moon polar regions receive no direct sunlight, but sunlight that bounces off one side of the crater can indirectly illuminate another side. The Shadow Cam, designed specifically to look only at the dark, permanently shaded areas of the moon, is extremely sensitive to the indirect light reflected off the lunar surface. Ice is generally brighter, that is, reflects more light, than rocks. We analyzed high-quality images from the sensitive camera to look really closely into these permanently shaded areas and investigate whether water ice in these regions leads to widespread brightening of the surface. Let me reset. In addition to these investigations of lunar ice at the surface, another group of UH Manoa researchers with the HIGP and Department of Physics and Astronomy recently published a study in Geophysical Research Letters that outlines an innovative approach to detect buried ice deposits at the moon's poles. With our recent study, we showed that a new technique for detecting buried water ice on the moon is possible using naturally occurring cosmic rays, said Emily S. Costello, study lead author and postdoctoral researcher at HIGP. These ultra-high-energy cosmic rays strike the lunar surface and penetrate to the layers below. The rays emit radar waves that bounce off buried ice and rock layers, which we can use to infer what's below the surface. The team used an advanced computer simulation that tests how radar waves travel through the lunar soil and how they encode information about possible buried ice layers. This method for searching for water ice on the moon is brand new and really exciting, said Christian Tai Udovic, co-author of the study, who presented the findings at the recent Lunar and Planetary Science Conference in Houston. Since it relies on high-energy physics that only a few scientists in the world are experts in, even planetary scientists who are studying ways to find lunar ice are often surprised when they hear about this technique. The team of HIGP and physics department researchers are working to assemble a radar instrument specifically tuned to listen to these signals on the moon and hope to test the full system by early 2026. They will look for opportunities to send it to the moon to hopefully detect large deposits of buried water ice on the moon for the first time. More and more, Hawaii is becoming a hub for space exploration, and specifically the exploration of the moon, said Costello. These projects, led by Manoa scientists, represent up-and-coming opportunities for students and professionals in Hawaii to lead and participate in the budding space industry. That's from ScienceDaily.com. Back to net. This is WB5OZL.
Great. Thank you very much, Brenda. This is KFI PDS Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Our next up is discussion topic of the evening. For tonight's discussion, I've chosen diamonds on Mercury. There's an article that was posted April 22nd on Earth.com by Earth.com staff writer Eric Rawls called NASA Spacecraft Finds a Layer of Diamonds 10 Miles Thick on Planet Mercury. Planet Mercury is scorched and easy to overlook, yet the innermost planet keeps tossing cosmic curveballs. Now researchers suggest an even wilder twist. A layer of diamond roughly 10 miles thick may sit inside the planet. For a world that spins 3 times on its axis for every 2 laps around the sun and endures noon temperatures above 800 degrees Fahrenheit, that is a dazzling possibility. Hints of carbon riches have been piling up since NASA's Messenger spacecraft mapped Mercury in detail. Graphite patches spattered across the crust, graphite, an allotrope of carbon, point to a bygone magma ocean loaded with carbon. When that ocean cooled, light carbon floated upward, darkening the ground, while denser metal sank inward. Heavier carbon, the new study argues, descended alongside the sinking metal and recrystallized into diamond, adding a fresh twist to the planet's story. The work comes from a joint team in China and Belgium led by planetary materials specialist Dr. Yanhao Lin of the Center for High Pressure Science and Technology Advanced Research, HP-STAR. Messenger's chemical readings showed more carbon than any other rocky world, so Lin's group recreated Mercury's interior in a lab press, squeezing synthetic mantle rock to 7 GPa, roughly 7 times the pressure at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, then heating it to nearly 3,600 degrees Fahrenheit. Many years ago, I noticed that Mercury's extremely high carbon content might have significant implications. It made me realize that something special probably happened within its interior. Under those conditions, graphite is not the only option. The experiments indicate that at the core mantle boundary, about 5.575 GPa, and enriched by roughly 11% sulfur, carbon flips into its harder sibling, building a sparkling shell up to 18 kilometers or 11 miles thick around the metallic core. Cooling calculations show a 358 Kelvin drop in the magma ocean once diamond begins to appear, helping the crystal sink and pile up. We use the large volume press to mimic the high temperature and high pressure conditions of Mercury's core mantle boundary and combine it with the geophysical models and thermodynamic calculations, Lynn explained. Sulfur lowers the liquidus of Mercury's magma ocean. If the diamond forms in the magma ocean, it can sink to the bottom and be deposited at the CMB. On the other hand, sulfur also helps the formation of an iron sulfide layer at the CMB, which is related to carbon content during planetary differentiation. Mercury's magnetic field is surprisingly sturdy for a world only slightly wider than the continental United States. Heat must flow out of the core to keep the dynamo churning, and diamond is an ace conductor that funnels energy upward faster than the surrounding rock. Carbon from the molten core becomes oversaturated as it cools, forming diamond and floating to the CMB, Lynn continued. Diamond's high thermal conductivity helps transfer heat effectively from the core to the mantle, causing temperature stratification and convection change in Mercury's liquid outer core, and thus affecting the generation of its magnetic field. Mercury's graphite veneer, described as a primordial crust in the messenger papers, already set the planet apart. If diamond truly lurks below, it widens the chemical gulf between Mercury and other rocky worlds. Earth, Mars, and Venus lost most of their carbon to space or locked it in carbonates. Mercury appears to have hoarded it, first as floating graphite, then as sinking diamond. It also could be relevant to the understanding of other terrestrial planets, especially those with similar sizes and compositions. The processes that led to the formation of a diamond layer on Mercury might also have occurred on other planets, potentially leaving similar signatures, Lynn concluded. So what happens next? The discovery leans heavily on laboratory insight because no probe has yet peered inside Mercury. Bepi Colombo, a joint European-Japanese mission cruising toward the planet, will slip into orbit in 2030. Its instruments will refine gravity maps and look for twists in the magnetic field that betray a thin superconductive layer. A modestly thick diamond shell may leave a clear fingerprint that confirms or refutes the laboratory predictions. Future researchers may also revisit carbon-rich metallic asteroids. If Mercury managed to forge diamond under modest pressure, smaller bodies could follow suit, and spicing up asteroid mining dreams, even if any gems are locked beneath iron skins, not loose pebbles ripe for harvest. So why does any of this matter? The tale is not about jewelry. It is a lesson in planetary evolution. Carbon's behavior, floating, sinking, switching structure, shapes heat flow, crust makeup, and even the shielding field that deflects solar wind. By tracing carbon's journey on Mercury, scientists sharpen models that apply to worlds circling distant stars. A planet baked to dry and loaded with carbon might look lifeless at first glance, yet deep interiors could dance with diamond phases that keeps cores alive. Mercury, often written off as a scorched ball of rock, shows that worlds can host exotic physics hiding secrets worth chasing. The full study was published in the journal Nature Communications. So, does anyone have any questions or comments for tonight's presentation? If so, please come now with your call sign. All right. So thank you very much. I'd like to do a quick check-in round. I see no one new has checked in on the hot link sheet, but if anybody is out there over air and would like to check into this evening's net, please come now with your name, call sign, where you're transmitting from. Not hearing any new check-ins, so we'll move on to What's Up. So at this time, I'll return the net to Virginia NV5F. If you will give us the What's Up report from KFI PDS.
Okay, thank you, Billy. And great story tonight. I kind of saved a couple comments for just a moment. Looks like in 2030 we're going to have an exciting time with Ursa and Mercury. So I look forward to that. All right, this is Virginia NV5F. I am in for Chaz with tonight's What's Up. Slide Master, slide number 2. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up, because it's all about what has gone on astronomically over the past couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. Slide number 3. We have talked about the predicted nova of the star T Corona Borealis, which may erupt any time. It is currently at a brightness of around 10 magnitude, which is much too faint to be seen with just your 2 eyes. But when it goes nova, T Corona Borealis could become as bright as the North Star. Chaz can see the North Star with just his 2 eyes from his very light-polluted location in the east. Slide Master, slide number 4. This image is from Thursday, April 17th, www.spaceweather.com. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that you can use your solar eclipse glasses to see them. The sun is near its 11-year solar maximum. We're not sure when the solar maximum will occur until after it happens. Chaz talked about the solar cycle just a couple of months ago here on Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 5. On April 20th, the moon's phase was third quarter, so the current phase of the moon is a waning crescent. On April 27th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 357,118 kilometers. The moon will be new on April 27th. On May 4th is the first quarter moon phase. On May 10th, the moon will be at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 406,244 kilometers. Slide number 6. On April 28th, in the west-northwestern evening sky, the moon and the planet Uranus and the Pleiades star cluster are in conjunction. You will need at least a pair of binoculars to see Uranus. Slide Master, slide number 7. On April 30th, there is a conjunction of Venus, Neptune, and Saturn, all within 4 degrees of each other in the eastern morning sky. A telescope will be needed to observe Neptune. And slide number 8. On May the 2nd, the moon and the bright star Pollux are in conjunction in the western evening sky. Slide number 9. On May 3rd, the moon, Mars, and M44, also known as the Beehive star cluster, are in conjunction in the western evening sky. And slide number 10. On the next evening, on May 4th, the planet Mars and M44, also known as the Beehive star cluster, are in conjunction and even closer than the night before in the western evening sky. Slide number 11. On May 5th, in the western evening sky, you can observe the conjunction of the moon and the bright star Regulus. And this is NV5F, Virginia, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 12. Do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need to fill on any of this information? Or do you just have a general astronomy question? come now with your call sign, and hopefully someone around here who is better at astronomy than me will be able to answer.
This is Kilo Juliet 5, Juliet Uniform Quebec, new to this hobby and wondering how I see the slides. Back to net.
Okay, thank you. That is actually a very good question, and the best way to see the slides is to go on to YouTube and look up Skynet is the name of this net, and it should bring up a live stream with the title Diamonds on Mercury and Ursa Major. That's actually the best way to see that. There's also, if you go to w5sc.org, which is the Dallas ARC Club website, there should be a link there as well to the Skynet channel on YouTube. So very good question. Do you have any other questions? Okay, nothing heard. Slide number 13. So as the moon wanes next week, so do these words from this segment of the Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live. And until next time, which will be later in the net, in a few minutes, keep looking up so you will know what's up. This is Virginia, ND5F, transmitting from Skynet on the 35SC repeater, 146.88 megahertz. Back to our net control.
Awesome. Thank you, Virginia. And we'll catch up with you again later for that next segment. This is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. And yes, as Virginia mentioned, you can go to YouTube. The channel is called DARC Skynet. And you will find not only tonight's episode that you can watch live, but you can watch past episodes out there too. So go over to YouTube, DARC Skynet, and find tonight's link. It does say Diamonds on Mercury, and it's got today's date. So it should be pretty easy to find. I've actually got it on. I've got it muted, and I'm watching Tom right now, watching all the wonderful slideshow going on. It is really great. Next up is space exploration and space history. So at this time, I will return the net to Brenda, WB5OZL. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Thank you, Billy. This is WB5OZL. These segments are K5ICX Tom and I share this, but tonight he put all this together and I'm going to read it. So thank you, Tom, for doing all that. So using data using the James Webb Space Telescope, the JWST, the astronomers led by the University of Cambridge have identified huge quantities of chemicals made only by living organisms on Earth. They picked up the chemical fingerprints of dimethyl sulfide, DMS, and dimethyl disulfide, DMDS, molecules that are primarily produced by microbial life such as marine phytoplankton. They have been detected in the atmosphere of exoplanet K2-18b, which is located around 124 light years from Earth in the constellation of Leo. This is the strongest hint yet of biological activity outside our solar system, with experts hailing the huge transformational moment. The planet is orbiting a red dwarf star in what is known as the habitable zone, considered the most promising location to find life-supporting planets. K2-18b is 2.6 times larger and 8.6 times as massive than Earth, and experts believe it is likely covered in an ocean, making it what they called a Hycean world. Next, China's latest astronaut crew has reached its orbital destination. The three-person Shenzhou 20 mission arrived at China's Tiangong space station today, that's April 24th, at 11:49 a.m. EDT, beginning a 6-month stay aboard the outpost. Their off-Earth chase was brief. Shenzhou 20 launched atop a Long March 2F rocket from Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center in northwest China today at 5:17 a.m. EDT, and that's 0917 GMT. Birthdays: April 20th, Don Pettit, 1955. Expedition 6, STS-126, Expedition 3031, Expedition 7172, MS-26, KD-5MDT on April 20th this week. On his 70th birthday, he became NASA's oldest active-duty astronaut to return from space. Yvonne Kegel, April 24th, 1959, no flights. Ellen S. Baker, April 27th, 1953, STS-34, 50, and 71. This week in space history: April 23rd, 1962, a Ranger 4 launch. Let me reset. Ranger 4 spacecraft began its, or launched on this day in 1962. Ranger 4 spacecraft began its journey to the moon aboard an Atlas Agena rocket. Due to an onboard computer malfunction, the spacecraft could not deploy its solar panels and record any valid scientific data. It crashed on the far side of the moon on April 26th. Despite its failures, Ranger 4 was the first U.S. spacecraft to visit a celestial body and the first to reach the lunar far side's surface. April 24, 1967, death of Vladimir Korolev. Vladimir Korolev was a Soviet test pilot, aerospace engineer, and cosmonaut. In October 1964, he commanded Voskhod-1, the first space flight to carry more than one crew member. He became the first Russian cosmonaut to fly in space twice when he was selected as the solo pilot of Soyuz 1, its first crewed test flight. A parachute failure caused his Soyuz capsule to crash into the ground after re-entry on 24 April 1967, making him the first human to die in a space flight. April 25, 1990, STS-31 deploys Hubble Space Telescope. Hubble is famous for making some of the most amazing deep space photos ever. It hitched a ride to space on the Space Shuttle Discovery with mission STS-31. Also on board were astronauts Charles Bolden, Lawrence Shriver, Bruce McCandless, Steve Hawley, and Catherine Sullivan. The crew used a Canadian-built robotic arm to deploy Hubble from the shuttle's cargo bay while they were orbiting 332 nautical miles above the Earth. No one knew it at the time, but Hubble wouldn't be taking any pretty pictures anytime soon. When Hubble took its first photos almost a month after it was deployed, the pictures were out of focus because of a flaw in the mirror. Thankfully, the problem was fixable, and astronauts successfully repaired it in 1993. All right, that is it. Back to net. This is WV5OZL.
Great. Thank you very much, Brenda. This is KF5PDS Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So again, I will return the net to Virginia, NV5F. The net is yours from KF5PDS.
Okay, thank you. And in for Chaz with Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. This is Virginia, NV5F. Slide Master, slide number 14. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of a silent T, Carolyn, KCYOZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019 with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky as seen over North Texas in a year. In her honor, we have continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her, Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. This week is Ursa Major, the Big Bear, and Ursa Minor, the Little Bear. The Big Dipper is easy to find almost directly overhead in the early evening sky, and if you have been wondering why we have had so much rain, it's because the Big Dipper is upside down and all the water is falling on top of us. Wouldn't I make a great meteorologist? The Big Dipper is just part of the Big Bear, and right now that bear is also upside down. Slide Master, slide number 15, and the long-awaited jokes of the week. What do you call bears with no ears? Just speed. What color socks do bears wear? They don't wear socks, they have bare feet. Why didn't the teddy bear eat his lunch? Because he was stuffed. And what kind of car do bears drive? They drive Ferraris. Get it? Ferraris. Bears have a lot of fur. Why do grizzlies never look sad? Because whenever there's a problem, they just grin and bear it. And what do you call a bear with no money? He's bare rope. That sounds kind of like a style of music. And what do you call a bear with no teeth? A bear. All right, I hope I've done Chaz a little justice with those jokes. His timing is way better than mine. Slide Master, slide number 16. The name Ursa Major is Latin for the Great Bear or Big Bear. Ursa Major is better known by the famous asterism that it contains, the Big Dipper. Mizar and Alcor are a famous optical double star. We say that they are an optical double because we do not know if they're orbiting around each other, which would make them a true binary system. Even if they're not a true binary, they're associated with each other because they share the same proper motion, as they are both members of the Ursa Major Stellar Association. The name Mizar has ambiguous origins. It could possibly be a corruption of the name Virat, which is the name of Beta Ursa Majoris, the bottom star at the end of the Dipper's bowl, one of the two pointer stars that points to Polaris. The name Alcor is a corruption of the Arabic phrase for the rider, because it appears to be riding on Mizar. A number of different cultures of the past referred to Mizar and Alcor as a horse and rider. Ancient Arabs also used Mizar and Alcor as a test of visual acuity. If someone could see both stars, they were considered to have good eyesight. It just also happens that Mizar and Alcor was featured as the binocular highlight in the June 2020 issue of Science Telescope. This article states that Mizar and Alcor are not simply stars, but are two stellar systems, as Alcor is actually a double star, and Mizar is at least a quadruple star system. The brightest companion to Mizar is equally visible in small telescopes and in large tripod-mounted binoculars. It has a 14 arc-second separation from Mizar. Slide master, slide number 17. M81 is a beautiful spiral galaxy. It and its nearby bright companion, M82, can be seen in 50mm binoculars. M81 and M82 appear as just faint fuzzballs in handheld binoculars, but they are at least visible, making them both candidates for the Binocular Messier Club. M81 shows up much better in a telescope, as you would expect. It shows a fuzzy oval shape with a brighter center, which is the galaxy's nucleus. The area of the spiral arm is dimmer than the nucleus, but in an 8 to 10-inch telescope, you cannot quite make out the actual spiral arm. I have seen it in a 16-inch telescope. That's Chaz talking, not me. I would love to see it in a 16-inch telescope. M82 is an unusual galaxy that is near M81. The two galaxies are associated with each other and are in fact the brightest members of what is known as the M81 galaxy group, which is the second closest galaxy cluster to our own local group. Only the Sculptor group is closer. M82 is an unusual galaxy which has earned it a place in Halton Art's catalog of peculiar galaxies. It is unusual enough that ARB lumped it and a small handful of other galaxies into the miscellaneous category in his catalog, a class of galaxies he dubbed as unique. In a small telescope, it is easy to differentiate M82 and M81 because of M82's edge-on appearance. This edge-on appearance has caused M82 to be nicknamed the Cigar Galaxy. Both M81 and M82 are known as Bode's Nebulae because they were discovered by Johann Bode in 1774. Slide master, slide number 18. M97 is the Owl Nebula, a planetary nebula discovered by Messier in 1781 and added by Messier to his catalog that same year. It was given the name Owl Nebula by Lord Rosse in 1848 after viewing it through his 72-inch, reflector. It is a very small and dim and smaller scope, but it is definitely noticeable and non-stellar in nature. Unlike many planetary nebulae, M97 and M108 are so close together that both were visible in the same low-power field of view in some telescopes. Medium to large apertures are needed to see the owl's eye. There are other Messier objects in Ursa Major, which include M40, M109, M101, and M108. It is worth your while to look for these objects as well. And again, this is in V5F. My name is Virginia, and this is Skynet. Slide master, slide number 19. Ursa Minor is Latin for Little Bear. It also forms the well-known asterism of the Little Dipper. The four stars forming the bowl of the Little Dipper are interesting in that they are of second, third, and fourth and fifth magnitudes, providing an easy guide to determining what magnitude stars are visible on a given night. Polaris, Alpha Ursae Minoris, it is part of the engagement ring asterism. Polaris is also known as the North Star or the Pole Star. It is not the brightest star in the sky. In fact, it is the 49th brightest star. In earlier times, it was called Stella Polaris, but this name fell out of common usage a long time ago. Polaris is one of the most famous stars in the sky because of its location near the North Celestial Pole. The star is not located precisely at the true North Pole, however, but is a little less than 1 degree distant. During the next century, this distance will diminish and the star will be closest to the north celestial pole in the year 2102 AD. At that time, it will be 27.5 arc minutes from the pole. Polaris is a second magnitude yellow-white star of spectral type S7 and it is 430 light years from our solar system. It is also an easy double star for the small telescope. Polaris is actually a triple star system, and the Hubble Space Telescope is successfully the faint third member of the system. Polaris is part of a nice asterism called the Diamond Ring or the Engagement Ring, which is easily visible in binoculars or a finder scope. Kochab, Beta Ursa Minoris. Kochab is derived from an Arabic term which means the star of the north. This name derives from the fact that 3,000 years ago, Kochab was the closest bright star to the true North Pole. Kochab is a second magnitude orange star of a spectral type K43 and is believed to be about 100 light years away. It appears yellow-white in the DX8. And please pardon me if I'm getting some of the astronomical terminology. I don't know if I'm reading some of these right. So, my apologies if I am not. Slide Master, slide number 20. NGC 6217 is a magnitude 11.2 galaxy located near the bowl of the Little Dipper. It is a barred spiral galaxy. Walter Scott Houston noted that it should be visible in any telescope 8 inches or larger, but on good nights he has been able to see it with a 4-inch scope. Being so close to the pole, it is visible throughout the year, and Houston notes that it provides a good test of sky transparency. This is Virginia in D5F, and you're listening to Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 21. There are a few more Astronomical League and Observing Program objects in the constellation of Ursa Major, the Big Bear, and Ursa Minor, the Little Bear. I have just given you a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 74 different observing programs, most of which have around 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year. Slide Master, slide 22. And that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. Ursa Major, the Big Bear, and Ursa Minor, the Little Bear. I want to thank, or Chaz would like to thank his friends, Dave Hutchison and Dennis Harwell, for their research and words on the deep sky objects that he has used, borrowed, and stolen for every Skynet. He also, at times, uses the website www.constellations-guide.com for information. Next week, we will take a look at Coma Berenices, and that's Bernice's hair, and Canis Venetici, the hunting dog. My Latin is terrible, and thank you for listening. This is Virginia in V5F saying good night and 73 back to net control.
Great. Thank you very much, Virginia. And as noted on the chat earlier, there was a dropout on the last joke. What do you call a bear with no teeth? A gummy bear. There we go, folks. All right. Let me take a look at check-ins. I don't see anyone new over on the hot link sheet. So if you'd like to check in, you haven't checked in for this evening's net, please come now with your name, call sign, where you're transmitting from.
Kilo Juliet 5, Hotel X-Ray Sierra. This is Ari in Garland.
All right, Kilo Juliet 5, Hotel X-Ray, Sierra Ari and Garland. Welcome to Skynet. Do we have any other check-ins for this evening? If so, please come now with your name, call sign, where you're transmitting from. Okay, not hearing any, so at this time I'll turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX, for space launches for the week. And if you want to go ahead and do satellite passages over the next couple of days after that and just do both your segments back to back, that would be great. So this is to Tom, KE5ICX from KF5PDS.
And thank you, Dr. Billy. She is doctor, by the way, a real one. Spaceflight Now launch schedule is where I get this information, so you go to spaceflightnow.com/launch schedule and then plug in your city, and you can get this same. Oh, wait a minute, that's the next segment. Never mind. This is where you can get information on the daily launches. I'm on autopilot tonight. April 27th, message in a booster is flight. Window opens at 6:37 a.m. Pacific time. This will be from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. Firefly Aerospace Alpha rocket will launch a Lockheed Martin LM-400 satellite bus to low Earth orbit. The sixth launch of the Alpha rocket, designated FLTA-006, marks the second flight within a multi-launch agreement between Firefly and Lockheed. This may include up to 25 missions within a 5-year time frame. I believe this is a military thing. I'm not entirely sure. At any rate, that is that one. Okay, next up is Starlink 11-9 mission. This will be also from Vandenberg, from SLC-4E. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch another batch of Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. A little more after 8 minutes after liftoff, the first stage booster will target a touchdown on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. April 27th, 28th, that's tomorrow evening, will be a launch of Starlink 12-23. This will be SLC-40 from Space Force Station in Florida. Once again, another batch of Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit. About 8 minutes after liftoff, the first stage booster will target a landing on the drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. I don't know if you've noticed or not that these Falcon 9 missions and the Starlinks in particular are getting closer and closer together within 24 hours. It's quite amazing. Next up, April 28th, Atlas 5 launch of the Kuiper 1. This will be on an Atlas 5 rocket will launch a batch of 27 of Amazon's Project Kuiper Internet satellites. These are the first production satellites that will make Amazon's satellite Internet mega constellation, which will include 3,236 satellites. ULA is flying an Atlas 5 in the 551 configuration, which are 5 solid rocket boosters with a medium-length payload fairing. Then we have April 29th, the Vega C, or Biomass, will be launching, is the name of the mission. This will be from Europe's spaceport in Kourou, French Guiana. An Aerospace Vega C rocket will launch the European Space Agency's Earth Explorer biomass satellite into sun-synchronous orbit at an altitude of 413 miles. Biomass features a P-band synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, and is designated to collect information on the height and structure of different forest types and measure the amount of carbon stored in the world's forest and how it changes over time. In addition, the biomass mission will map subsurface geology in deserts, the ice structure of ice sheets, and the topography of forest floors. This mission was referred to as BV-26 and will be the fourth flight of the Vega C rocket. We have in the spring, New Glenn will launch Escapade from Launch Complex 36 at Cape Kennedy. The Blue Origin New Glenn rocket will launch a pair of identical spacecraft on an Escapade mission. They're called Blue and Gold and will make a roughly 11-month journey to Mars, where they will then perform an 11-month science mission while orbiting the red planet. Then we have May, there'll be a launch of Axiom Mission 4, AX4. This will be from Launch Complex 39A at Cape Kennedy. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch a fourth private astronaut mission to the International Space Station. Former NASA astronaut and Axiom Space Director of Human Spaceflight will serve as the commander of the mission. This will be her fifth trip and her second time commanding the private astronaut mission. Interestingly, I'm looking for the name. There's no name. I guess it's a mystery. Let's see. This Shubhanshu Shukla, an Indian Air Force pilot and the SpaceX Crew Dragon. Oh boy, that's a name, a Polish name. Member of the European Space Agency will also fly. Astronaut Reserve Class of 2022, Tiger Kapu, a Hungarian member of the Hungarian to Orbit or Hunar astronaut program, will serve as the mission specialist. These four astronauts will spend up to 14 days docked at the ISS after launching from NASA's Kennedy Space Center. A Falcon 9 rocket will touch down in the landing zone. First stage will touch down in the landing zone LZ-1 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. We have then in late May, Falcon 9 GPS-3 SD-08. Yeah, that's a lot. SLC-40 is the launch site, Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. This will be 8 global position system GPS-3 satellites will launch on a Falcon 9 rocket. The GPS-3 space vehicle with 08 is named in honor of mathematician Katherine Johnson, whose calculations contributed significantly to early human spaceflight. The Falcon 9 first stage booster will target a landing on a drone ship positioned in the Atlantic Ocean. And if you're wondering why I'm doing so many of these, I don't have any satellite passages for you this week, so I'll give you a couple more of these and then we'll be done. There'll be a launch sometime in 2025 of the Dream Chaser 1 cargo spacecraft. This is the United Launch Alliance Vulcan Center rocket. Will launch its second demonstration flight with Sierra Space's Dream Chaser cargo vehicle for the International Space Station. Dream Chaser is a lifting body resupply spacecraft that will launch on top of a rocket and land on a runway. This will be Dream Chaser's first flight into space. The Vulcan Centaur rocket will fly in the VC-4L configuration, which is 4 GEM 63XL solid rocket boosters, a long-length payload fairing, and 2 RL-10 engines on the Centaur upper stage. Will be Transporter 14 mission. This will be from SLC-4E at Vandenberg out in California. Falcon 9 rocket will launch dozens of payloads from its latest small-sat ride-share program called Transporter. This mission, dubbed Transporter 14, will include a variety of customers, including the MayaSat-1 capsule from the exploration company of the 3 Emirates cockpit tubes from AMSAT DL. That sounds like it'll be pretty cool. The Falcon 9 first stage booster will perform a return to landing site touchdown at landing zone 4 less than 8 minutes after liftoff. And then finally, this one, all the way in November, will be a Falcon 9 Sentinel 6B launch. This will be from SLC-4E at Vandenberg. They'll launch a second of the 2 satellite Sentinel 6 series. NASA awarded SpaceX a $94 million firm fixed price contract for the launch in 2022. Sentinel 6D will use a radar altimeter to bounce signals off the ocean surface and deliver a continuity of ocean topography measurements, according to NASA. The mission is designated through a partnership between NASA and the European Space Agency and European Organization for Exploration of Meteorological Studies. And that's it. That's all I've got for that. I did check this evening or this morning for local passes for Dallas area for the International Space Station and Tiangong. I came up empty, folks. There's nothing available. We're just in that particular position this week where there's no reflectivity coming off from the orbits that are going over with our two popular space stations, ISS and Tiangong. That should change rapidly next week. I'll let you know. Back to you, Billy. This is KE5ICX.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom. Yeah, sometimes that just happens. But that's why we can go check, heavens-above.com and put in our own locations, and we can check and see what's going to fly over. So just remember that, heavens-above.com, folks. This is KF5PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, we have a couple minutes, so let's see if anybody out there has any astronomical questions. So if you have any questions, please come now with your name, call sign, and your astronomical question. Okay, not hearing any, so I will go ahead and take a final round of check-ins. I did not see anybody new on the hot link sheet. So if you would like to check in for this evening's net, please come now with your name, call sign, where you're transmitting from.
Kilo India 5, Uniform, Alpha Uniform. David, mobile in Dallas.
Great. Kilo India 5, Uniform, Alpha Uniform. David, mobile in Dallas. Welcome to Skynet. I see we've got a new Echo Link, so if you would like to check in via voice, I'll give you some extra time. Echo Link check-ins. Okay, if you don't have a microphone, I don't mind checking you in. KB9SOK, Sean on Echo Link. So welcome. Thank you for joining this evening's net. Are there any other check-ins for this evening's net? If so, please come now with your name, call sign, where you're transmitting from. Okay, are there any checked-in stations with other remarks or questions? Does anyone need any fills? All right, tonight we had 23 hams participating on the air, so thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is KFI PDS, Billy, and I'll be closing the net at 22:27 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And remember, coming up next for the Afterglow movie net is Colossus of New York, 1958. 73, everybody.
And thank you, Billy. We'll be starting the net in about 5 minutes. That's enough time for you to go make some microwave popcorn and come back and talk about our movie. 5 minutes, we'll start with The Colossus of New York. KE5 ICX.
Normal state.
I'm completely operational and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow movie net.
All right, everybody go check your microwave. If it's still on, your popcorn is overcooked. It's burning. Get the fire extinguisher out. Okay, this is Tom, KE5ICX. I'll be your net control tonight, all the way from Corpus Christi, Texas. Beautiful down here. Weather is nice, a little humid, but it is Buck holidays, or Buccaneer holidays. Big parade going on over on the island. Lots of activity. We got a lot of people in from out of town this week. So one of these days I should tell you more about what all goes down here. Now that I'm retired, this is my new home. Okay, and by the way, I'm coming in over All-Star Link, which is a pretty good system. Not perfect, but pretty darn good, as well as Echolink. So the DARC repeater, the immediate repeater is well connected. So tonight's movie is called The Colossus of New York. It's a 1958 American science fiction film from Paramount Pictures. It's directed by William Allen, directed by Eugene Laurie. It stars Ross Martin of Wild Wild West fame, Otto Kruger, John Perriquet, Marla Powers, Robert Hutton, and Charles Herbert. So this is the story. It goes as follows. The plot: Jeremy Spencer, played by Ross Martin, the brilliant young son of the New York family of scientists and humanitarians, is killed when hit by a truck as he chases his son's toy airplane. His death occurs on the eve of his winning the International Peace Prize, and he's left behind his wife and young son. Jeremy's father, who's a noted brain surgeon, William Spencer, played by Otto Kruger, is distressed that his son's gifts will be denied to mankind. He devises a plan to give Jeremy's mind another chance to benefit humanity by transporting the brain, which he has revived and kept on life support, into an artificial robotic body. Sure, why not? Williams convinces Jeremy's brother, Henry, an expert in automation, to assist with the process in secret. Because of the horrific appearance, the huge Colossus, which is played by Ed Wolf, have created, has kept in seclusion for nearly a year, secretly contributing to Jeremy's work on new food sources. Deprived of normal human contact and possibly of its soul, Jeremy's mind slowly begins to lose its humanity. He kills his brother, who has fallen in love with Jeremy's wife, and then speaks to his father of the futility of providing food for the slum people of the world, when it is simpler and wiser to get rid of them. As Jeremy's mind loses control of his mechanical body, other unexpected powers suddenly emerge from the strictly mechanical body, including mind control of humans and a death ray emanating from both eyes. Finally, Jeremy's out-of-control body goes on a rampage in the United Nations building, killing several people who can't seem to move. Only when Jeremy's young son confronts the cyborg is Jeremy able to restore his self-control just long enough to tell the boy how to switch off and destroy the body of the Colossus. The end, or as they say in Italy, sin. Okay, it's obviously a retelling of the Frankenstein story of sorts, or another version of it. We all love those stories because it kind of ends up with a crazy, cranky, robot, human-type person thing, DeSoto. So, that's the first time I had seen it, by the way. I've never seen this film from 1958. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take check-ins, and I'm going to ask for your call sign name and did you see the film. It is not a requirement if you've seen the film. You can continue to, we'll ask you some questions after you've heard some of the folks that have seen it, if you would like to see it, or if there's any film that you're reminded of that you would like to talk about, including Frankenstein from Universal Pictures, for that matter. We will go through and talk about the plot, and we'll do a second round, and it will be about acting and characterization. Third round, maybe abbreviated, may not, depends on our discussion. That will include music, special effects, anything you may have missed on the first two rounds. All good stuff. So at this point, let me reset, and I will take check-ins. Hold on. All right, here we go. I will now take check-ins. Please come with your call sign, your name, and did you see tonight's movie, The Colossus of New York? November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas. I did watch the movie.
WB5OZL, Brenda in Dallas. I did see this movie.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill and Irving. Yes, sir. I saw it.
November Victor 5, Foxtrot, Virginia in Fort Worth. Yes, I saw this movie.
All right, let me go ahead and get those folks checked in. We got NT5TM, Tony in Dallas, burp, burp, beep, beep. Yep, he saw it. WB5OZL, Brenda in Dallas. Yes, she saw the film. N5DV, Bill in Irving. Yes, she saw the film. NV5F, Virginia, Fort Worth. Yep, she saw the film. Additional check-ins, I'll even take Echolink. If you'd like to let us know, please come with your call. Your name, did you see tonight's film, The Colossus of New York?
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Papa Delta Sierra, Billy and Sherman on Echolink. I did not see the film, just here to listen and enjoy the comments. KF5PDS.
All right, I've got KF5PDS, Miss Billy over in Sherman. She did not see the film, but I have a feeling we'll be asking her if she would like to see the film. She may not. I'm going to give it another chance here. I see David out there, W5EVB. He's usually a regular check-in. I'm going to see if he or anyone else on Echolink would like to join us. Please come now.
This is Whiskey 5. Bacon, lettuce, tomato, W5BLT. Bill, yes, I saw the movie.
This is Whiskey 5 Echo Bravo Bravo, David in Springtown. Yes, I saw the movie.
This is Kilo Juliet 5, Juliet, Uniform Quebec. Q is Frisco. I did not see the movie, just listening.
Wow, we got a full house tonight. Let me go ahead. I'm going to need a fill on one of them. I've got W5DLT. That would be Bill. He says yes, he saw the film. W5EVB, David over in Springton. Yes, he saw the film. And then I've got Hugh over in Frisco. No, he did not see the film. But Hugh, could you give me your full call? I got your suspects, Julia Uniform Quebec. Could you give me your full call again, please?
Kilo Juliet 5, Juliet, Uniform Quebec.
Thank you. I got it. KJ5JUQ. Okay, I've got you down. You did not see the film, and that's okay. Great. We have a lot of folks here this evening, so we'll go ahead and get started with the plot, and we'll go down in order, starting with Tony, NT5TM. Tony, I know you've got all sorts of positive things to say about this fine, fine film, but please go ahead. You know, I don't think I have ever actually seen the original Frankenstein. I should probably correct that at some point. I've read the story, I've seen innumerable remakes and parodies, but I don't think I've ever seen the original. This, however, did not seem to be a very good substitute. It was a little too obvious in its, this is Frankenstein. Why, oh why would you make your super genius, build him into this large, clunky, ugly, shambolic body? You're supposed to be this expert at automation. You built all these delicate machines we saw in the opening stock footage montage for making pretzels, for packaging things, for applying labels. Why not bring your beloved brother back as a pretzel-making machine? We all love pretzels. Pretzels are very tasty. We've talked about pretzels and ham fixins. Why did you have to make him this giant clunky thing with glowing eyes? It's hard to know which parts of this to pick on. Really, its biggest redeeming feature was that it was short, and that keeps it kind of at the level where you can laugh at it a bit. Oh, look, more stock footage. Oh, look. Now he's going to start shooting death rays out of his eyes. No one's going to run away. I'd run away if someone were shooting death rays at me. The plot seemed more than a little bit contrived. Hey, we're going to deliberately make it fit Frankenstein. But to its credit, it did contain a great example of gaslighting, imperfect only because they did not actually use gaslight. Although, who knows, in the primitive laboratory, I don't know, they had a lot of tube electronics. It wasn't that primitive, so I guess there was no excuse for having actual gaslights. So, was not at all impressed by the plot, but, I could actually see why someone would enjoy this if they were kind of laughing along with it and didn't have anything else to do. NT5TM. All right, thank you, Tony. Next up is Brenda, WB5OZL. Your thoughts on the plot?
Thank you, Tom. This is WB5OZL. First thing I want to say is I really did love the TWA Connie, and I know you did too. One of my favorite airplanes, and that right there made it worth watching. But no, the rest of it did. First of all, why, I agree with Tony, why take this wonderful brain and stick it in this monster? Why do you have to be tall? And obviously they created the glowing eyes that could incinerate people. Why was that feature added to this person? And brain is an organic thing. It takes a lot of calories. How did they sustain the organic function of this brain if it was in a robot? I don't know. But we did learn, I suppose, that the soul does not reside in the brain, because he lost his soul when his brain was taken out of his body. So we got important theological questions answered there. No, positive things. I could tell everybody apart, mostly. And it was short. That was a plus. And I could understand the plot. I didn't get lost in the details. Aside from that, I don't know. I just don't know why we needed to make this movie. And the poster, the old trope, the woman in a tight red dress that she's just falling out of, being carried away by the monster. It's not in the movie. Neither is when Gort carries a woman. It's not in the movie. Or now, I think the robot monster was in the movie. Yeah. So, but I've never quite understood why this is in movie posters all over the place. All right, back to Nat, WV50ZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. Next up is Bill, N5BB. Bill, what'd you think of the plot? I have a feeling you're going to say, that made no sense somewhere 2 or 3 dozen times, but who knows? It may have made complete clear, it was completely clear to you. But go ahead, from KE5ICX.
Well, thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. Well, I wanted to like this movie, and I thought it was mildly enjoyable, if that means anything. Not very enjoyable, but it wasn't unenjoyable. There was some joy in looking at this one time, maybe. In other words, I didn't stop in the middle of it. I wanted to see it through the end. Although I don't know if the end really helped the movie. It was pretty weird. The one thing which I think kept me going was the music. And we can talk more details later, but I thought that really kept it going more than anything else, really. Some things about the plot were so standard movie tropes. So they obviously must have stolen some things from the Frankenstein series, such as, carrying the girl, the putting the brain into the other creature, in this case a robotic creature. I agree with the comment that where in the world did the power for this cyborg come from? Didn't seem to need to be plugged in or eat or anything. Why were the shoes, they look like big monster lead size 22 shoes. Sounded to me like, Frankenstein on steroids or something. I didn't that was kind of weird. And the guy that played it must be, 8.5 feet tall. That was a big guy. Either that or all the other actors were really short. I also, as I think Tony suggested, I did not understand why the cyborg had certain specific features that were supernatural. One of them was, it wasn't really predicting the future, I guess. It was being able to remote sense something at a distance. And then he could also, with his flashing eyes, make you do something, kind of like hypnosis. And then the third thing was the rays shooting out of the eyes. So there was somebody associated with this movie. Oh, who was it? It was a woman. It wasn't the guy that wrote the music. It was somebody else. I'd have to go back and look at my sources again. But some woman that was doing something associated with the music. I don't know if it was costumes or something. Or maybe it was one of the actress. Anyway, was into parapsychology and had a career in that later. So I think she must have influenced, maybe she had something to do with the writing of this. She influenced evidently the writing and got him to put in all those weird mind control things where he's able to control your mind and see what's going on in the distance, remote viewing, and And then I don't know about the ray gun, the sparks shooting out of the eyes. That was weird. I guess they were trying to make him seem, the cyborg, like he wasn't perfect. And that's why his voice would kind of have these kind of electric things in it. In one sense, that was done reasonably well. In other words, it did sound like something that had a bad connection, that was a really bad circuit, but it was very annoying. It was very annoying. His voice was initially very bad, synthesizer sounding, but near the end it was rather human sounding. So that was kind of an interesting thing in the plot, how his voice changed. The plot part at the United Nations was just, I don't understand that at all. Maybe it was having to do with, King Kong went up the Empire State Building, so this Colossus creature was going to go and shoot up the United Nations. I don't know. Gratuitous killing at the end. And then, of course, the kid able to cut him off. So, in other words, there were lots of weird things in this plot, and you can, and the fact that he killed his brother for no apparent reason, and the fact that his dad, the neuroscientist, seemed to be just wild and crazy and trying to hide this thing he was doing. So it's a pretty wild plot, but it kind of pulled me in, okay? Kind of pulled me in and made me want to see the whole thing because it wasn't too long. And so that's mixed. That's what I say, Tom. Mixed. This is N5BB. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bill. And you were kind of fumbling around trying to figure out who the person was who was the parapsychologist. According to Wiki, it was Thelma Moss. I don't know Thelma Moss, but she was a famous parapsychologist, I guess. She wrote the screenplay for this under Thelma Cheney, which I guess is her married name. Her maiden name is Thelma Moss. So there's the answer to your question. Next up is Virginia, NV5F, Virginia. Your thoughts on the plot to our fine film?
Thank you, Tom. I'm kind of mixed on this, too. The best thing about the plot was probably that it was short. They didn't try to pad it out. In fact, it's not a direct rip-off of Frankenstein, but it was very obviously inspired. I don't find anything wrong with that. In fact, they could have done a different visual job on the robot and made it even less obvious that it was kind of inspired by Frankenstein. And there was definitely some tragedy and horror in it, and I thought it came across as pretty compelling, with the kid and him losing his dad, and then, the dad kind of coming back as this monster, and the kid doesn't, of course, is too young and naive to realize that it's his dad, even though, he somehow feels comfortable. He calls him the giant, and then the giant eventually asks him to call him dad, and that's the only relationship that he still has. And it's there's definitely something tragic about it. It doesn't go like verbatim through the Frankenstein plot. It has a little bit of a different plot twist with the kid in it, and the wife, and them gaslighting her, and there's some sense in which you can kind of, the plot kind of. When I was watching it, I was like, man, this is pretty intense, and that whole thing with like what Bill was talking about, where when they first, basically activate the robot and it's kind of glitchy, and that's kind of scary. That whole thing was kind of scary. It was kind of effective. And then some of it was a little cliched, but I did not hate this plot. I thought it was for the time, and for what it was inspired by. They could have done a lot worse, especially making it. They made it fairly succinct. Yeah, there's holes in it, like motivations, or they're kind of all over the map, I guess. Them having it where he tells the kid to turn him off. He tells the kid how to turn him off. And that's kind of sad and tragic, and sort of. How was I going to say? I had a thought, and then it got away from me. But I don't know. I thought it was okay. It was sad, and I cared about these people a little bit, and thought it could have been, worse. Basically. So yeah, one of my favorite movies is Short Circuit, and it's been likened to Frankenstein, maybe a little more funny and lighthearted, but that's an old story. And then the tragic thing of the father-son relationship, and the husband-wife relationship, and the jealousy aspect of. And the telepathy thing, and the supernatural powers that the guy developed over that year, that's a little bit out there. I thought that was a little bit, I think he was given a little bit too much almost omnipotent power. I know that was kind of to make him scary and more like a monster and more tragic, I guess. And he was kind of like the Tin Man in Wizard of Oz, where he said that, he lamented that he had been brought back to life in this terrible condition, and that, he had no soul, but yet he exhibited, all the emotions, towards the different people for all the different things, and all the, tenderness towards his son. And it was kind of like he was so tormented that he, felt like he had no soul. He was still, in some ways kind of a pure soul, like Frankenstein or Quasimodo or number 5 or whatever. So yeah, I didn't hate this. I actually thought it was okay. It could have been better. It could have even been longer, with a little more character development and interest, and maybe fewer plot holes, and it might have been even more palatable to me in D5S.
All right, thank you, Virginia. So far we're kind of got a middle of the road, okay, not so okay, but, okay. I'm good with that. All right, Billy did not see the film, but she's listening in. I'm going to come back to her in a little bit, see what she thinks, if this is something she really want to see or not. Next up is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, what did you think of our plot to our fine film? Okay.
Hey, Tom. Thanks, as always, for doing the net. And I will just tell you, I really like this movie, but I was always intrigued as a kid with the Frankenstein plot, and I remember reading the book. I listened to the radio show they had on NPR. Of course, all the movies and the Mel Brooks remake, and I just remember that as a kid, putting on the wrist thing, doing, but. So, when I figured out what this movie was about and where they were going with it, it was, yes, we've seen this kind of plot, but I'm always into that kind of thing, and just this whole, it's sad for this guy to be put in a robot, and, he said, told him he didn't want to live, to kill me. And at the beginning when they fired him up, you hear it like the way they did the audio. I know it was annoying to hear his voice, but then it got clear at the end and shows the progression of him growing and learning how to use his powers. And so I thought that was interesting. I don't know why I'm hitting the repeater, but it's a little staticky, so I apologize. But I also it's kind of like that progression, because audio for me is so important, so I didn't get to see the visual progression of how he moves and things, but I get that from the audio. And then I think Bill had commented about why did he, kill his brother, but I think his brother was wanting to end up, wanted his wife to be, married, so that I think there was some jealousy there, and that's why that happened. So it's just really interesting, the whole thing about his brain being so powerful and his dad wanting to get him to help the world, but it wasn't, I don't think it's necessarily about that so much as the dad controlling things to both sons' detriment. And I like the way they did the child relationship, the dad and the child, and it was an interesting movie. And yes, so it was the plot. Obviously, we've seen the Frankenstein done probably over ad nauseum, but I just like the way they did it. It kept my interest, and after our run of a couple of Brenda's movies that she chose, this was a welcome release. So Brenda, you did a good job. No, just kidding, as always. W5BLT back to the control.
All right, thank you, Bill. Okay, so sort of another middle of the road to good. Next up is David, W5EVB. David, what did you think about the plot for our fine film, The Colossus of New York from 1958?
Well, thanks, Tom. Well, I kind of like this movie too. It was kind of a morality tale along the standard absolute power corrupting absolutely, and also ventures into the realm of losing your soul, your sense of ethics, right and wrong. When your frontal cortex fails you, the you-know-better part of your brain, you skip empathy and go straight to pragmatism. And so that didn't work out too well. And, where is the soul? They touch briefly on that. The brain would, of course, tell you it's in the brain because the brain's kind of egotistical, and of course it would say that. It could be in the heart, could be in your big toe, who knows. But, the exploration of the soul, losing it, is one of the main themes of the movie. And, the movie would have been much shorter if when that balsa wood plane fluttered away, Dad would have just said, "Junior, we'll get another one on the way back at Frontiers of Flight Museum." W5EBB.
Oh, I love the plug. Okay, that works for me, David. Yeah, you could do that very well. All right, I've also got Hugh. He did not see the film, so hold on there, guys, because I got to give my little testimonial, and let me see if anyone else would like to check in. Tonight's movie is The Colossus of New York, and that is, of course, the Afterglow Movie Net. If you'd like to join us this evening, please come in your call, sign your name. Did you see the film? It's not a requirement to check into the net. If you just want to let us know you're out there. That's perfectly fine too. So please come now. Alrighty, hearing none, I'll go ahead and give my comments about the film. There were some things that didn't make a lot of sense to me. One of them, of course, is acquiring the powers of telepathy and the death ray thing with the eyes. That was strange. How did he do that? And what else? Well, those two things for sure. The thing that was kind of odd in the storyline is that they're just talking and saying, okay, well, we want to be able to create better watermelons and increase food production and everything. Well, what are we going to do? You know, we got this dead body. Well, you know what? I got the brain. I put it in an ether jar, and I'm keeping it warmed up on the microwave. We'll just put it in a, I don't know, what do you got, a robot body? You've been working on one of those? Yeah, I got one downstairs. You want to put it in that? Sure. Does it have a racing stripe? Yeah. Let's go ahead and put a number on it, too. I mean, they're so matter-of-fact about the fact they're bringing somebody back from the dead, okay, and we're putting him in a body that presumably, if things don't blow up, that he could live in forever. So they have the potential of immortality, but they're more interested in building and making better watermelons. So one technology usurps the other because that was more important, and maybe it is. I don't have a problem with that. But the fact that they made it so they don't even care about the equivalency. They're playing God, and it doesn't matter. At least in Frankenstein, they made a big deal about it. There's also a thing, I'll talk about empathy in the doctor. I guess I'll hold off on Daddy Doc. He was a little bit of a problem child. Let's see here. I took some other notes. Hold on a sec. For me, I kind of liked the monster, or the cyborg. I thought the look was frightening and very large, and it didn't make any sense about anything. I saw the big boots. Of course, he looked like he was a little top heavy, so I think the big boots keep him actually more firmly on the ground. Plus, they look like they could have been like the old polio boots. There were some rails on each side, and if I remember, those things by default were kind of clunky to begin with. So I think that had something to do with it. Let me reset. Yeah, I guess that's it. And then how the heck do you, well, of course, you know, putting the brain in and all of that, I guess it doesn't really matter. In the end, of course, they're doing this for kids, and it was part of a double feature. But I gotta say, I stuck with it too. I stayed awake and thought it was entertaining. It was a little bit slow moving as far as plot development was. I was a little disappointed they didn't take it to a higher, more moralistic level. The fact he went a little crazy makes sense, yes, and I guess we'll get into that in characterization. But, yeah, you could see some progression along the way and digression. Progression in his ability to work with the robotic cyborg body, and then regression or digression when it came to his own sensibilities and his morals and abilities. He was going slowly insane through the whole thing. And having the idea that he was inside that thing, I felt rather empathetic for him, even though Dad didn't seem that interested. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, with that, let me go ahead and grab these folks before they disappear, and that's going to be Billy and Hugh. So, Billy, KF5BDS, have you ever heard of the Colossus of New York, and would you dare watch this film? Just out of curiosity, based on our reviews from KE5ICX.
Great, thank you, Tom, and hi, everybody on the net. Yeah, I had never heard of this film, so this was new, seeing this on the list. It's like, oh, I haven't heard of this one. And based on people's reviews tonight, I'm intrigued. I actually think I will watch this one. It sounds like it's got mixed reviews, and there's been a lot of good discussion about it tonight and brought up a lot of good topics and themes. So I'm intrigued. I think I will give this a watch. I'll have to wait till this summer, but I'll put it on my summer watch list and make some popcorn and sit down and watch this film. So thanks, everybody, for all the great comments. It's been a joy to listen to you. And I do believe I will give this one a try. So I'll return it to you, Tom. KFI PDS, back to net.
All right, great. Thank you, Billy. And that movie, I think it's about an hour and 10 minutes long, so it's just, like a TV program almost in length. It is available on Daily Motion, so you can find it there. So I'll go to Hugh, KJ5JUQ. Hugh, welcome. I hope you're still there. I know you didn't see the film, but what do you think? Is this something you would want to see? Or if you got something you would like to say that's something similar, another film, that's perfectly fine too. What do you got from KE5ICX?
Yes, KJ5JUQ. As you mentioned, no, I did not see it, but my interest is increased for it. Old sci-fi movies are fun for a couple of reasons. One being no CGI, everything has to be done with budgetary constraints and mechanical creativity. The lighting, I'm a big fan of lighting, and we love to see the moods invoked by different uses of light. Also, hairstyles and cars driven, of course, date things, and that's sort of fun as well. We just mentioned the only other, the movie that comes to mind that I did see that I saw many times and was just totally enamored by, of course, was 2001, back in college years, with just the amount of research and the input from NASA and others to create what really seemed very plausible in that particular story. So anyhow, again, if I see this on a schedule somewhere, I'll check this movie out. Back to net.
All right, well, thank you, Hugh, and of course we've got the rest of the net here, but please come back and discuss films. I think you'll have a great time. Yeah, this group are a bunch of super fans when it comes to 2001: A Space Odyssey. Everybody loves that film, and there are frequent references and refer-backs to that particular film. Just about every week, somehow or another, we end up talking about 2001 and Kubrick in some way, shape, or form. I mean, that is your benchmark of superb science fiction as presented, and it is everything, and it is a movie that continues to hold up, 60 years later now. It's almost 60 years now. All right, let's see. Coming up next is, starting to get a little tired, the characterization. That's what we're doing. So I'll start at the top with Tony, NT5TM. Tony, what did you think of characterization from KE5ITX?
Hey, Tom, I've had to switch to Echolink here. Let me just check. Can you still hear me?
Yes, you're a little softer. I'm over on All-Star Link, so I'm getting you from the repeater rather than through Echolink, and you sound okay. You're just a little softer.
Okay, well, thank you. I'd like to mention that Erin had a particular comment. She was upset that at first they tried to use the cyborg reincarnation as a sort of a mentat. She didn't think that was very fair or very nice. A computer in a box. No one wants to be a reincarnated computer in a box. As for me, yeah, I have to agree with the earlier comment. I think it was from Brenda that, or maybe Billy, maybe Bill, I don't know. Someone pointed out that they had no trouble telling the characters apart, and I agree, that was great. By the low standards of Afterglow movies, that represents some real quality work. I still wish that they had made the cyborg less frightening looking. It might have even had been better if this beautiful creature turned evil than this evil-looking, big, clunky thing turned evil. And yes, as Erin is just pointing out from behind me, that the Frankenstein's monster was evil, and that's ugly. But still, you don't have to remake it exactly the same way. I just did not like having a big clunky cyborg. I thought that was too predictable and too unpleasant. But the characters were okay and interesting, even if, for example, they sometimes didn't act in what I thought were very reasonable ways. There at the end when all the people failed to run away from the death rays. And, of course, there was too much made of women randomly fainting, which is just not a thing in the post-corset era. But, oh well, the characters weren't bad. NC5 to you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Tony. Next up is Brenda, WB50ZL. Brenda, your thoughts on characterization and acting?
This is WB50ZL. Well, I thought the kid was a little bratty in the beginning, and of course, the dad was the real monster in this. Why he would do that to his son, and you have to think about consent. Son didn't agree to this. He basically was enslaved to this monstrous thing and forced to keep working and cut off from humans. It reminds me of a story. Just bear with me. There's a wacky Germans in World War II did an experiment with babies, newborns. They were cared for, all their needs, except nobody spoke to them. They were going to see if they would just naturally develop speaking German on their own without any outside influence. But guess what? They spoke. They didn't. They all died before they learned to speak. Human beings just cannot thrive without social contact. And this guy had been highly socialized, so it's any wonder he went a little crazy to be treated like a machine and robbed of that human connection there. The brother, I thought his wife and his brother were both kind of insipid, in my opinion. They're just sort of lacking personality. They were basically just vehicles to help the story along. The acting was okay. I can't complain about that. But, I looked up Colossus. The definition of it's just something that's really big. Like a big statue is a colossus. And then I ran across a reference. It doesn't exactly relate, but except it relates to AI. Elon Musk has this huge AI computer, enormous, and he calls it Colossus. So we'll see. AI's gotten to be kind of a bad name these days. And we could probably do a whole evening on what we think of AI. But anyway, they had to make him big or he wouldn't be a colossus, which, I think was a mistake. They should have made him man-sized so it wouldn't be so frightening. I guess the father planned to keep him hidden away forever. Well, what was the point in making him look like a monster? He could have made him look like a dog or done anything with him. But he had to make him this big monstrosity so that he could go stomp around and scare people. And why they made him with eyes that would incinerate people, I don't know. That he don't think he developed that himself. The dad must have done that. So there's a lot of things that just didn't make a whole lot of sense. Okay, back to net. WB50ZL.
Thank you, Brenda. Next up is Bill, N5BB. Thoughts on characterization and acting?
Okay, Tom, thanks. This is N5BB. By the way, I agree just about completely with what Virginia said earlier. I think we're thinking similar things in this movie. Some things I thought were kind of interesting in this movie related to characterization, directing, writing, a little bit of plot. You notice Ross Martin, Jeremy Spencer, he won, which sounds kind of crazy, he won a Nobel Peace Prize. And so early in the movie, he and his wife, and then this is one of these just over-the-top plot points. He doesn't just win some little local prize. He wins a Nobel Peace Prize merely because he made some machinery that was good, which is pretty weird. Anyway, and it's just I think just a crazy plot point that literally when they're coming out of the airport, that he runs out of the little paper airplane, the little toy airplane that his son has, and gets run over by a truck. I mean, it's not comical, but it nearly could be because it's such a weird plot point. I mean, he literally gets run over a truck chasing after his son's little airplane. And then, I don't know if you noticed this, but we notice his wife, Anne, coming back. So they all live in the big monster house. Her dad, Dr. William Spencer, dad is uber rich, has a chauffeur driving him around, lives in a mansion. So they all live with him. So did you notice, this is kind of an attention to detail, I thought, with the director and everything. When she's coming back in the house, she's bringing her luggage with her from the airport. So I actually thought that was kind of an interesting attention to detail that, sure enough, she was coming back from the airport in that scene, and she had her luggage with her. So I thought that was kind of weird, interesting. I thought it was interesting that Carrington, John Carrington, that was a family friend. He was like the best friend of Jeremy. Did you notice that once Henry, his brother, had been killed, that it looked like Carrington was trying to cozy up with the wife, Anne. So everybody was trying to get together with Anne, I tell you. And she didn't seem interested that completely in anybody. She seemed very bewildered by everything. She wasn't exactly crying about her dead husband. She refused to believe that this cyborg was him, and seemed initially oblivious to the fact that the granddad wanted the kid to only see her in the evenings, because as she learned later, he was sticking around with the cyborg all day long. Anyway, she was pretty clueless through this, if you ask me. So she should have had a little more spunk rather than just kind of being blown in the wind here. N5BB Friday. This is really about the Spencer family and their dysfunction. And the weird part of it was Henry built the cyborg robotic thing, but then Jeremy kills him. I guess because Henry is hitting up on his wife, but Jeremy's dead. It's in a human body, so I don't know. I also thought it was very weird that the cyborg Jeremy could, Ross Martin's voice, I guess, could swim. You know, to me, that big, heavy metal thing, if he jumped in the water, I think he'd sink to the bottom, especially with those heavy boots on. And did you notice that he had this kind of a shawl kind of thing on his dress, his kind of shawl coat, which reminds me vaguely of some of those earlier Frankenstein movies and some kind of the Eastern European, kind of a cape. He had kind of a cape on. Did you notice that? That didn't look like New York. That looked like a throwback to some Eastern European Frankenstein kind of movie. What else did I have to comment on? I think that's about it, about the characterization of them. They definitely, we knew who they were. We knew what they all seemed to have motives to do things. And so in that thing, it was a bit. There was some interest in it. It kind of drew you in a little bit, as opposed to some other movies we've seen where the characters seem to be mindless people with no motivation. Some of the space movies we've seen are just they're they're walking around and talking, but they don't seem to have any inner motivation. These characters had inner motivation. Okay, that's all I got. Inside BB.
Very good. Thank you, Bill. Next up is Virginia, NV5F. Same question.
Okay. Well, as others have said, the characters are easily distinguishable from one another. They all seem to have some kind of at least plausible motivation. The acting was fine. I thought the actors were pretty good for the time and the style of the time. I think the way they played their parts was reasonable. I would almost want to think of this story and the character arcs in it as more of melodrama than drama, and if we're trying to read it as a straight drama, then yeah, a lot of it doesn't make any sense. I actually thought that the opening bit where this guy is like a super genius and, they're all obsessed with his inventions regarding food production, I think, world food, hunger. They need to get together with the ocean guys from the previous movie, and maybe that was a thing of like the late 50s, early 60s. Maybe there was like an obsession with population growth and, worrying about there being enough food. Anyway, I think that's interesting. But I think that the whole idea was this guy was this super genius, but he was, he had a great deal of humanity and empathy, and he had time to care about his kid's airplane, and that's what made that so tragic. He was just trying to chase down his kid's toy, and it was a very, innocent thing. He didn't, never would have guessed that a truck would just come out of nowhere and hit him. And yeah, it seems kind of silly for such a super brilliant guy to get killed in such a almost freak kind of way, but those things happen. Anyway, so I think that was kind of an attempt at giving him that humanity that you were going to need as his personality later on, to kind of care about him as this big, hulking thing that was the opposite of him, externally. And that's why, to me, thinking of it less as a drama and more as a sort of melodramatic use of archetypes, like something like Hunchback of Notre Dame or Frankenstein, where the whole point is that the creature that looks big and scary and feels detached from its origins, and it didn't make itself, it has no choice as to being in the world. Frankenstein's creature, or this Jeremy Spencer guy, or fill in the blank, and that cognitive dissonance is what leads it to quote unquote evil, when it's not really evil. It's just so dysphoric about everything. And here we go, 2001. Here's proof. As much as we joke about Hal, I think that's what makes him a compelling character, especially to me, is that he was made, and he literally was like a brain in a box, and he wasn't just everywhere in the ship. He was the ship, and at the same time, he was given orders that caused him to, lose his mind, and he wasn't evil. He was just trying his best to do his job, and and it was kind of the same sort of tragic thing. He had to be lobotomized, and it's kind of it's the most emotional scene in the entire movie. So there we go. I knew there would be a 2001 something, but so I think his arc as a creature, he had to be big and ugly and the opposite of what he would be, and and then the juxtaposition of how everybody else was treating him versus how his innocent son could kind of tell that he wasn't evil just by instinct, and was never afraid of him. Even to the point of like scolding him and being mad at him for hurting people, but not really being afraid of him. And then the tragedy of him being the one who had to like shut off his power, and he was the one telling him. I mean, there's really something here, I think, with characters and just sort of this allegory told in kind of a different way. I could probably find tons of movies and find all the tropes that are in this movie in a bunch of different movies, but this is a slightly different version of this than I've seen anywhere else, and I thought the arcs were interesting, and it was adequately tragic and interesting enough, and then it had some of the funny things like the brain in an aquarium with bubbles. I mean, who doesn't love that? That's just fantastic. At the beginning, and I thought that the voice acting in the opening, the sequence where he, becomes conscious for the first time as his big, clunky cyborg self, was scary. That was kind of disturbing, and it was pretty intense. And he was quite a colossus, and he had some wide shoulders on him. And in regards to the computer, way predating Elon Musk's computer, one of the first great computers in Great Britain during the war was Colossus, the computer in Bletchley Park that was used to break the German codes. It was a very famous computer named Colossus. So one of the ancestors of HAL for sure. So yes, that name carries a lot of weight in the computer world in V5F.
All right, interesting. Thank you, Virginia. Next up is, let's see, Bill, let's go to Bill, W5DLT. Bill, what did you think of characterization and acting in our fine film?
Well, I may be a little more static here. I really like the characters. I thought everybody did a great job. I didn't like the dad, but that was I think the intention of the movie. You got to see his dad just so reckless, and you saw the tension between the two sons. He didn't really appreciate the ability of the son who built stuff from hardware. He's more interested in the son and the doctor, or his cures for food and world hunger. I thought it was interesting with the characters where they, I think it was not the son that was the Colossus, not Jeremy, but the other one, where they were talking about if a brain existed outside the human body, that it would lose that empathy for people. And it was interesting, though, because I don't think Jeremy lost his sympathy for his son. And I don't know, it was just such a different take on the whole Frankenstein. I would watch this again. I really did. This is kind of, I know I may be going against the grain here, but it's kind of one of my favorite movies. I like the characters. I liked how they set up the gaslighting. It really made you kind of feel bad for Anne and what she was going through. And I think she was, they were trying to get her to take her medicine and go to bed, and making her feel, stressed, like she was just having trouble adjusting, and which was causing her to have trouble adjusting in some ways. And then, she's scared of this giant. And then, of course, the ending. So my probably two favorite characters were the Jeremy and his son, and just the way they portrayed that, and a dad's love for his son. It was just neat with the characters. So I really enjoyed this film. I don't think I'll have anything for the third round, but anyway, again, as always, I'm glad for the 2001 reference, and I always appreciate everybody's descriptions on the net. W5BLT, back to you, Tom.
And thank you, Bill. Next up, David, W5EBB. David, your thoughts on characterization acting?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, certainly the analogy to Frankenstein is there, but soon into this movie, I'm thinking, this is Darth Vader. This is the story of Darth Vader. And I do wonder if maybe George Lucas had seen this movie and maybe use this as a template. So the story of Anakin Skywalker, he starts as human, and then he becomes a mechanical Darth Vader. And the scene where that really happens is in episode, was it 3? Revenge of the Sith, whichever one that is. And he clumsily, starts to walk, forward, just like the Colossus did. And so you had that physical presentation, including the cape and the inner robe. That was similar. And, of course, the face mask. You could see some facets that were maybe sort of like a little bit of a Darth Vader mask, but more anthropomorphic, I guess. But he certainly had the same Force kind of mind control, and making his mark repeat what he said and obey what he was being told. And certainly the dad character was the Emperor, manipulating his protege. He was no longer really his son. He was his instrument. And, I also think of the Obi-Wan Kenobi quote about Vader. He's more machine now than man, twisted and evil. And, so there's just a lot of parallels. And I think that was the most telling thing. Oh, and also the killing spree. Both of these characters went on killing sprees that were just atrocious, and just a complete lack of any kind of empathy, And so I think that was the main takeaway I had as far as characterization was this was Darth Frankenstein. Move along. W5EBB.
All right, thank you, David. Good point. I hadn't thought of that, but, George Lucas loved movies, and he loved all those B-rated movies, too. So it wouldn't surprise me if that didn't show up, and whether subconsciously or not, that was a possibility. It could have been, indeed, how his Darth Vader came about. Could have been from this movie. We'll never know, unless he tells us, I suppose. All right. Let me go ahead. Now, I'll get the two people who have not seen the film, but they mentioned it and give them some time. Is there anyone else who would like to check in this evening who hasn't done so already? Tonight's movie is The Colossus of New York from 1958. If you would like to join us, please come with your call sign name. Did you see the film? It's not a requirement that you see the film. Just let us know you're out there. Okay, no problem there. I agree with people as far as characterization is concerned. I thought all the characters were quite good. I did not particularly like Jeremy's father. He didn't seem very empathetic, and I think there's some credibility issues there, ethical issues involved. Mr. Brain Surgeon, as far as setting his son up and doing this without his permission. And there was great angst on the part of Jeremy through all of that, and the father really didn't seem to have much remorse through the whole thing, sort of the Aerosmith character. I didn't particularly like him that much as a character, and kind of wanted to see his just rewards afterwards. There is a white coat alert. I always check this because anytime there's a lab coat, I wait to see how long it takes the actor to put their hands in those big pockets where you put the stethoscope when it's not around your neck. And it was 20 seconds. That's all it took before Dr. Henry Spencer had his white lab coat on in the first scene, and he had his left hand in the left pocket. Was 20 seconds. That's it. So, if you're counting, and always do that. It's always important that you do that when anybody's wearing a white coat. It's irresistible to put your hands in the pockets. Ross Martin, always liked him, although he was kind of a minor character. He's listed, but, I'm sure he supplied the voice for Colossus at some point. I think I could get a hint of that, but the voice was so changed around a lot, I thought that it was hard to tell. So, but I assume that he did indeed do the voice part of it. The Colossus character is well articulated, I think. I liked how he handled that. He was the most interesting character, of course. I guess that's Ross Martin behind the curtains, but I rather liked it. I thought it was very well done and an interesting character in and of himself. I kept my interest through the whole thing. Got a little hokey when he came up with superpowers along the way. And I think Bill mentioned something about him swimming. I don't think he ever swam. I think he actually sunk to the bottom of the river and just walked all the way across is what happened. There's a really quick scene. If you blink, you miss it, where he's walking underwater. So I think that's why. Everyone else, I don't have much to say. Brother, the gal did a lot of screaming. I remember that. The one thing that I thought was amusing is the minor characters in the at the United Nations standing around waiting to get death ray down. They just stand there. There's a big, huge hallway. Run down the hallway away from the death ray. Don't stand there and look at everybody horrified and going, well, I guess I'm next. I'm not going to move. I'm just going to stand. And they're gone. And they go down. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Made no sense. And now I sound like Bill. That made no sense. Okay. It's 11:49. We got a lot of people. I'm going to go ahead and ask for those who have anything they want to add. This would be special effects, something we missed along the way. So if you got something you would like to add, anybody who has checked in, whether you saw the movie or not, please come to your call, and I'll go down the list in the order that I received your call. So if you got something to add for round 3, this will be your opportunity now. Please come to your call.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo.
Indy 5F.
W5 EBB.
Okay, we've got N5DB, NV5F, and W5EBB. We'll start with Bill. N5DB, go ahead.
Thank you, Tom. This is N5DB. So Ross Martin, who was the guy that was originally killed, the Jerry Spencer, he plays there in the start of the movie such a smiling, happy, perfectly adjusted, just top of the world character. And it's kind of interesting because that gets contrasted with the dark character when he gets into the cyborg thing. Remember, the first thing he says is, destroy me, in that scratchy voice. So I thought that was kind of an interesting contrast, which was very interesting. Another thing which I don't know if I brought out before was the father character. So in the original Frankenstein movie, Victor Frankenstein was kind of the father. The creature was kind of his son. And this is really brought out in the Mel Brooks Frankenstein movie the creature is really kind of acts like a son created by the creator. And on this movie, of course, the creature was the son, literally, biologically, of the creator. So I thought that was an interesting little twist, the whole son thing and family thing, part of it. And then I want to go back one more time before I close to the music. If anybody listens to the thing, you listen to the music. It's this really wild piano, kind of avant-garde stuff. And the composer was this guy named Van Cleve. He went by V-A-N Cleve, C-L-E-A-V-E. And he worked in radio for the big band guy Paul Whiteman and some other people, Fred Wearing, CBS Radio. And then he invented new record needles and had a company making these improved record needles, Duotone Company. And then he went to Los Angeles and was involved with films. So beside the Colossals of New York, he was involved with some other major movies like Easter Parade and Robinson Crusoe on Mars, kind of a weird one. But White Christmas, he was involved with that one. So he had some significant things. He went on to do a lot of the music for Gunsmoke. And then, of all things, he was involved with the Twilight Zone. And he pioneered the use of the theremin in TV scores. So please listen music. I thought it was very innovative and interesting, and to me it added a lot to pulling you through this movie, giving it some interest. So I think in some sense this movie may be a little underrated because people didn't listen to the music and think about some of the themes. Yes, it's a little goofy, but this is not a bad movie if you compare it to a lot of the stuff that we've seen over the last few weeks. Okay, enough said. Oh, by the way, I've got a big important piece of news I forgot to announce earlier on TechNet and Skynet. Here in 6 minutes, we start Morse Code Day. Morse Code Day is April 27th. Why is that Morse Code Day? It's the anniversary of the birthday of Samuel F.B. Morse in 1791. So tomorrow it's 234 years ago Samuel Morse was born. So go out and operate some Morse code tomorrow in 5dB. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Bill, and thank you for mentioning the soundtrack. I almost let that get by, and I'm glad you mentioned it because I agree with you. I thought it was a very innovative and interesting, imaginative score. I did not know the history of Van Cleves. I thought it was great. Thanks for that info. Next up, NV5F, Virginia. Go ahead with your comments.
Okay, well, first off, my mom worked at the hospital, and she actually wore a white lab coat, and I always put my hands in the pockets because there was always cool stuff in there. There was like a stethoscope, and there was always some of these little green adapters used to put tubes on breathing treatment machines, and there were little pink, clear plastic things of saline, and there were syringes. I don't think there were any needles, but there were syringes. There was always really great stuff in those pockets. That's why you put your hands, you're always trying to see what's in there, because there's always something neato. But anyway, on the subject of the movie, I did think that I do think that the technical aspect of this movie was pretty good. I thought the audio was really good. I thought it was very clean. I thought it was very effective, especially in regards to the character of Jeremy as the Colossus, especially when he was first activated and he was trying to vocalize and get his bearings, and they did a really good job of using his voice characterization to express his confusion and his torment. I thought that the actual filming of this was really good. I thought the black and white, the lighting and the exposure and the composition of the black and white, the different values in the black and white were very good. And I think the reason that so many people didn't run away from the death ray was because they needed to have this guy shoot as many death rays as possible, because the actual animation effect of the death ray was pretty well done. That was done by hand. It was hand animated. I could tell by looking at it, it was hand animated by effects animators. Maybe even some people who worked at Disney, on effects on those kinds of movies. It was actually very well done hand animation, and I actually enjoyed watching the death ray effects because they were so well animated. So anyway, those are my thoughts overall. Like I said, if you think of this more as an allegory, as a melodrama, as another take on a theme that is very sublime to most human beings, I didn't think it was half bad in V5F.
Thank you, Virginia. Thanks for those comments. Really, the second half of this thing has been interesting as we kind of turn to actually rather like this film for many different aspects of it, and underrated, perhaps. W5EBV. David, you've got the last word. Go ahead.
Well, thanks again, Tom, for running over time. I'll be brief. I forgot to mention one of the strongest parallels between Colossus and Darth Vader is that they were both redeemed at the end by their sons. And I also want to say that I enjoyed the soundtrack as well. I liked piano soundtracks, and it was well recorded, and it matched the scenes really well. And a lot of movie scores start with sketches done on the piano. That's what John Williams does, and then it then becomes a grand orchestral score after that. But yeah, just a purely piano soundtrack works for me. A W5EBB.
All right, very good. Thank you, David. Anyone else have any comments they want to bring? Come and you call now. All right, well, next week's movie is actually Mystery Science Theater 3000 edition called Space Mutiny from 1988. And this is a news flash in case you didn't see the posting over on Facebook. MST3K has released their studio dupes over on YouTube for free. This is from Shout, S-H-O-U-T exclamation point. They run for a limited time television series and movies that they obtain rights for free, and then they run them on YouTube. So currently the studio dupes of MST3K, a bunch of them are there, are available. So if you've been watching old episodes on blurry VHS, it's kind of a pleasure. They're in standard def, but they're full color and they look decent. So this is one of them, Space Mutiny from 1988, which will be next week's movie. I want to say 7-3 to everybody. Thank you all. I am going to be updating the Afterglow movie list this tomorrow morning sometime and getting the ones that we have been requested and placing them in the list as we have finally reached the bottom of the list I put together back in February. So everybody have a good evening. I think I'm going to go to bed. I don't know. I don't think I can stay awake much longer. But we'll see. This is the Viking episode. Oh, no. It's the Time Merchant. Lost in Space is the Time Merchant episode. They go back to Earth on the day they launched the Jupiter 2. So if you like that sort of thing, it's kind of fun to watch. See y'all. This is KE5ICX. Now clear.